joining us from the beautiful Dubbo is Matthew Dickinson. How are you today, Matthew?
Yeah, the beautiful Dubbo. Thank you very much.
It is a beautiful place. You got any rain there today? We got some showers about the place today.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of a sprinkle. I think it's meant to rain all day, but I haven't seen large volumes of rain coming down yet, but hopefully that'll start to change.
Now, the European Union is putting its foot down with e-waste. It's going to help solve a problem. Well, is it going to help solve a problem, or is it just going to make Apple angry?
Yeah, probably just make Apple angry. They don't like being told what to do. When you're a $2 trillion company, the largest tech company in the world, largest company in America, you like to call the shots normally. But this has been going on for about 12 years now. The European Commission has talked about e-waste. And back when they first started this whole program, there were about 30 different charges available. And you remember yourself, Chris, when you'd buy a mobile phone, every different phone you bought, every different electronic device you bought had a different charging port on it. So you used to have to work out which charging plug went with which device, and you end up with all this junk that then you'd buy a new model and you'd have to throw out the old chargers. The European Commission said, surely as an industry, you can come together and you can work out some sort of common charging concept. And initially it started off with micro USB, so there seem to be a few devices going that way. But then it's gotten to the point now where everyone pretty much universally has adopted USB-C as the charging port of choice. So we've got Android phones, we've got tablets, we've got computers with USB-C. We've even got my lights on my bike. When I charge those up, it's a USB-C port on them. So that seems to be the standard everyone's adopted. European Commission's pretty happy with that. But of course there's Apple. And Apple have said, we're sticking to our lightning ports in our phones because we think that allows us to innovate and have a better port, and it's a much better device. So that's the way we're going. Despite the fact that Apple have their iPad Pro and their iPad Air and their iPad Mini, which all have USB-C. Their standard iPad has a lightning port and the iPhone has a lightning port. So they want to stick with those. Whether they will actually come to the party with USB-C and take notice of the European Commission, or they may well say with their next model, we're going to have no port on it whatsoever and everything will be connected wirelessly to it. That may be their way of getting around it. But the European Commission is going to get to the point soon, maybe within a year or possibly 2 years, where they will make every device sold in Europe have USB-C ports on it. And that'll be an interesting bit of a showdown when you've got all of Europe versus Apple, and I'm not prepared to back a winner out of those two.
Yeah, one thing for sure, the European Union won't be dumping Apple. They're in everybody's lives. Now, China has declared all cryptocurrency transactions as illegal. This is interesting, effectively banning the use of all digital tokens such as Bitcoin.
This is really interesting. One of the great advantages, Chris, of cryptocurrencies is also their greatest disadvantage. The proponents of cryptocurrency say they're fantastic because no central bank, no government controls cryptocurrencies. But of course, that's their disadvantage, that there is no central banking control. And if someone like a China says that's it for cryptocurrencies, then you've got no one really to go and argue on your behalf. So it's been illegal for some time for cryptocurrencies to exist in China, but foreign exchanges have still been working and people have been able to make transactions. But they've now gotten to the point where China has said, that's it. We're not going to allow any transactions. We're not going to allow anything to do with cryptocurrencies in our country at all. And my experience with China, Chris, is when China says don't do something, otherwise it's illegal if you do, most of their residents tend to take notice. So on the back of this straight away, Bitcoin fell by more than US $2,000. And it's probably a bit of an indication of what's going to happen around the world. You may get some countries around the world who say, that's it for cryptocurrencies, it's all over, and you haven't got a leg to stand on. So if you go and invest in a cryptocurrency, you really haven't got any argument. You've got some money that might be tied up in cryptocurrencies, but you may not be able to use it. So it's a pretty scary situation for people that have invested in cryptocurrencies, believe in cryptocurrencies, but it's probably, you're always taking a risk with cryptocurrencies. And one of the greatest scams of all time was facilitated by someone who was proposing a new cryptocurrency called OneCoin. And that OneCoin was put forward. People were told to invest, don't miss out on the new Bitcoin. This will be the way you'll make lots of money and invest in that. This particular person had somewhere in the vicinity of 15 billion euro invested in OneCoin. No one actually bothered to check whether it was a real cryptocurrency or not. It didn't even exist as a cryptocurrency. And that person has now disappeared, doesn't exist, got 15 billion euro tucked away somewhere, and I suspect a new identity, Chris. So these are the risks associated with cryptocurrencies. I'm not a big fan.
No, and there's so many of them. If you want to trick your boss or parents into thinking you're working hard, apparently one New Zealand council meeting is the ultimate pretend meeting to attend.
These people have become a bit famous across the world for no particular reason. New Zealand Council in Waipa is the district that it's in. They basically have their meetings put on YouTube after the meetings, and that's fine. Lots of councils around the world, it's part of their local government process. They put the meeting online, and maybe a couple of hundred people might come along and view that meeting. That all sounds quite sensible. This particular meeting, the New Zealand Council was intrigued because 290,000 times this particular meeting had been used or viewed. There's nowhere near 290,000 people that live in Waipa District. So why were all these people viewing this meeting? They couldn't work out why. A little bit further investigation, they found that it just happened to be the right flavour of a meeting that if you were trying to trick your boss or trying to trick your parents and are thinking that you're working hard, you played this particular meeting. It went for an hour and 44 minutes, so you had a fair bit of time to do something. Someone would walk in and you just wave them away. Oh, no, I'm in a meeting. Oh, okay, sorry about that. And they'd walk out and leave you alone. So this meeting kept played over and over and over. And when some comments were put out about it, there were people who said, yep, I love this meeting. I've viewed this meeting 6 times so far. Someone else said it's fantastic because I'm sitting there, and even though there's some accents there, people have picked up on that. I've just told my wife that I'm in a meeting, in an international meeting, and the New Zealand accent's been brushed off as part of that. So it's a really interesting way that people have been able to get out of their meetings. And why they've picked this particular meeting, no one's really sure. But as I said, these New Zealand councillors are a bit semi-famous around the world for being part of this meeting.
It's Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson, and New South Wales Police rolls out new geo-targeting of missing persons' text messages, but it receives a public backlash.
Unfortunately, the technology here is really clever, so I'd like to be talking about the technology more than anything else. They've gotten an agreement with Vodafone, Optus and Telstra. The police can go along and they can say to those 3 carriers, we have a missing person here, a highly vulnerable missing person in this particular area. Can we please send out a text message to all the people within a certain zone of this particular area? And so that technology is fantastic. The problem is, a text message goes out, it says, please keep an eye out for this person. Here's a link to go and look at the photo of this particular person to see if you might have come across this person in the last day or 2 days or some time frame there. But of course, the Australian Federal Police, Scamwatch, even New South Wales Police have been saying to people, do not click on these links. These links that come to people are often a scam. But then there's also saying, if you see this link about a missing person, please click on the link and have a look if you've seen that person. So the public is a little bit confused about the messaging there. Now, the police have somewhat naively come out and said, no, it's okay. The number will always be 444 444 444 that it comes from. To spoof a number is incredibly easy for anyone to go along and pretend you're coming from another number. So having it always come from a certain number doesn't guarantee it's really coming from the police. And then the police have said, well, the link will just be to a photo. But again, you can click on a link and without you knowing it, that can be enough to actually infect your phone. So a lot of people have said they've received these messages and they've ignored it because they've assumed it's a scam. So how we get legitimate messages out there, how we stop people clicking on links that are scams, that's the real challenge here, Chris. I like the idea that this is going out there to help the police find people, but how do you actually say to people, this one's legitimate and this one's not? That's the real challenge.
Now, your iPhone already tracks your steps. We know that. What if it tracked your mood too? I'm a little bit sceptical, Matthew. Scientists, doctors really don't understand the human brain on paper. So what if I'm having a cold beer at the end of the day? Everything should be hunky-dory with this app.
Possibly. It's really interesting, some of the things they've looked at in this to try and work out whether or not your mood is being in a depressed state. And they haven't rolled it out yet because they're not happy with the technology level as it is at the moment. But there's a whole range of indicators they're using. So it looks at your face itself just to see what sort of mood might be in your face. So that might be some sort of condition there. It listens to the tone of your voice, so it might pick up something there. But then it starts to go further when you're typing a text message on your phone and you make a few errors, or the speed that you type at. So it's trying to take in all these various indicators from your behaviour, and then from all of that it might come up and say, hey, Chris, you look like you're in a bit of a bad mood, a depressed mood. Do you need to talk to someone? Do you need to actually go and sit down and relax for a little while? Is this mood that you're in now just a mood that's going to pass in 5 minutes, or is this going to be something a bit more permanent? So some psychologists are a little bit concerned about it, probably more about giving a false positive than anything else. They're a bit worried that someone might be going along and they're in a bit of a hurry. They're going to pick up the kids from school. They do a bit of a fast text message and make a few errors. Next thing you know, they've got a warning about themselves being in a depressed mood. And then they go, oh, wow, really? Am I in a depressed mood? I don't know. I haven't thought about it. So psychologists are concerned about that. Apple, again, haven't rolled it out yet, but this is something as part of the whole health process. And I think this is the real competition at the moment, Chris. We know that we've got watches that track things like our heart rate and do ECGs. We've got a whole range of devices that we're starting to see will do lots of things from our health perspective, and our mood, our depressed state of mind is the real challenge, the next challenge, I suppose, rather than some of those physical things. So I think this is where we're going with all of the devices we wear. We're going to be tracking health. That's the real challenge. The next, I suppose, big thing that some of our devices are going to try to work on is our mental health.
I don't think I'll be downloading that app. I think I'd get way too many negative alerts, mate. Anyway. Listen, the US Army to 3D print concrete buildings and bridges in disaster areas.
I actually thought of the old story with Wellington. You remember many years ago, the Wellington Bridge got knocked down by a truck that just got caught on one of the beams across the top. And I'm going back probably 40 years ago now, Chris, when that happened. No, it might have been 30 years ago. And the Army came in at that stage and they built a little floating bridge across the river to get people to cross the Macquarie River. And they took, I'm not sure, maybe been a couple of months to actually come in and build that quickly. So there are times in disaster times, or there are times in war times when you might need a bridge built quickly, you might need a building put up very quickly, you might need to house some people. Well, we know that 3D printing buildings is happening already. That's a whole range of processes going on there. So the Army is adapting all of this, and they're building a container-sized 3D printer that they can send out to a war zone, send out to a disaster zone, and in that container, it's got everything you need, apart from the materials, to 3D print a quick bit of housing, somewhere to house some of their Army personnel, somewhere to put a bridge across a river, a bridge across a canyon. I think the 3D printing is fantastic, but to be able to have it used in this sort of way, not really something that I'd thought of, but obviously the US Army sees that this is a really powerful way to use 3D printing. I just think we're developing so much in 3D printing, it's quite incredible.
All right, Matthew Dickerson, Tech Talk podcast is still going strong?
Very strong, yeah. Thanks, Chris. It's good. There's lots of listeners from around the Burke area that are tuning in to the 3D, to the podcast.
Yeah, we'll get it 3D one day.
That's right.
All right, mate.
Right, yeah, it's only one day at the moment.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us today. We'll talk again next Wednesday.
Thanks, Chris.